when we win in November, Marjorie, Penny, and the rest of the pro-life movement are going to be a very big reason why that's going to happen. And aren't we thrilled with this guy Donald Trump, who actually delivered on his commitment? Now, it was hard to believe, actually, when Marjorie and I were talking, he was telling people about his hair. It looks pretty good back here. It's real, right? And you're thinking, this is not going to happen. But it did, and and it's working. So whatever. So thank you, Marjorie. That was beautiful. Now, another person who's made an incredible difference in the pro-life, and I think the reason that, that this issue has become so vivid for everyone is Nick Searcy, who's with us tonight, who directed Gosnell. And if you'd seen that, it's you never think about an abortion in the same way. Introducing Nick is Deborah Flora, who is a nationally syndicated radio host, speaker, president of Parents United America, a nonprofit galvanizing parents to stand for parental rights in their children. A Lamplight Entertainment co-founder, she has produced several projects, including the acclaimed documentary Lieutenant Dan Band for the Common Good, starring Gary Sinise and John Voight. Thank you for that. As Miss Colorado and second runner-up to Miss America, she has spoken and performed around the world. Deborah, you want to come on up? And you will explain to us what second runner-up means.
Thank you, Bill. Well, in this crowd, that sounds very trivial, and I can teach you something very important. The pageant wave, elbow, elbow, wrist, wrist, wrist. Now you know. That's all it's about. Thank you so much, Bill. It's great to be here with you all. It's really like a family reunion. As he was telling you, I am a syndicated radio host, but if we're in California, I have to be honest. I'm a recovered actress now in my left brain and my right mind, so I'm kind of back home again. The reason why my husband Jonathan and I, and he is a Hollywood director and former producer with Walt Disney Studios, the reason why we slog through Hollywood is because we believe in the power of story. Now, you may ask, why is story so important? Well, because I truly believe that story and that politics is downstream of culture. Plato said it so well. He said to the people of his day, "Let me write the ballads of a country, I care not who makes the laws." What he was saying is he realized that if he could capture the hearts and the imaginations of the people through ballads or stories of his day, their actions would follow. That's why after launching Parents United this week, one of our first steps is going to be making a documentary to show the faces of people, because you see, any great movement only works if we show the faces of the heroes and the faces of the victims. And we're going to show the faces of parents who are losing the rights to be the primary influence in their children's lives. They're losing the rights to see medical records. They're losing the rights to see their school curriculum. They're even losing custody of their children when they don't agree to gender transitioning as young as 8 years old. We need to tell those stories. But here's the thing that I think is so encouraging. You know, Plato was talking about the power of story. Right now, parents are being told that the children belong to the state and not to them. But here's the good news. Stories are more powerful than the state. What matters is the stories that we tell. This commitment to using culture to transform our society, using the arts, is something that brought a group of conservatives together in Los Angeles. We went from a mere handful, and then as the first executive director of this organization called Friends of Abe, the underground organization of liberty lovers in the heart of Hollywood, we got to see it go from a handful to over 3,000 people. It was there that we first met our friend and the speaker tonight, Nick Searcy. Now, he stood out immediately because in a town where everybody whispers, lest they never work again, a very real fear, Nick has never minced words. He's a bold person on screen and off. For over 28 years, Nick Searcy has starred in numerous movies, including studio blockbusters such as Moneyball, Runaway Jury, Castaway. He's appeared in other highly acclaimed films such as the Academy Award Best Picture winner, The Shape of Water. You may also recognize Nick from all of his roles on television, including his 6-year run as Chief Deputy Art Mullen on the popular series Justified. He's also appeared on several other shows that you would recognize, little TV shows like American Gothic, From Earth to the Moon, Without a Trace, The West Wing, and CSI. I think what's most amazing about Nick's enduring career in Hollywood is he's one of those truly courageous artists who is not afraid to lend his significant talent to projects that really matter, that are outside the wire of the Hollywood PC zone. Nick is the director of Gosnell, as you heard, which is the film that exposed the horrific practice of the Philadelphia abortionists, and it premiered as the #1 independent movie in the country, and that's a lot to do with Nick's talent. He also cemented what I would call his fearless credentials because he actually showed off his acerbic wit and the astute insight that he has by guest hosting the Rush Limbaugh show. Now, let me tell you, those are two things you don't do to get ahead in Hollywood. You only do it if you truly love America. Please help me welcome the passionate storyteller and the great patriot, Nick Searcy.
Oh, well, thank you, Deborah. That was a great introduction. I mean, it was a little short. You left a lot of things out, but I understand. We've got to get on with things. I'm very happy to be here. I kind of had a very tough week. I had a small surgical procedure done earlier this week, so I wasn't sure I was going to make it, because I knew I was going to be a little bit physically compromised, and then also because of the effects of the anesthesia and the painkillers, I knew that I would be a little bit mentally diminished, but that didn't stop Joe Biden, so what the hell? He's going to win South Carolina. He doesn't even know he's there. So in honor of Joe, I'd just like to say that I'm Nick Searcy. I'm proud to be a speaker here at the Counter for Natural Pleurisy. Just give me a look. Give me a look. If you don't like my speech, just go listen to the other Searcy. You know. If you didn't get that joke, you haven't been paying attention, okay? But no, I'm very excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. It was an honor to be the director of Gosnell. It was something that meant a lot to me, and so nice to see Marjorie here, and I really can't imagine how excited all of you are to have me here. Have a real Hollywood star here to come and talk to you, because I know that you're all worried about what Hollywood thinks about all of you. I know you're all lying awake at night staring at the ceiling going, why do Harvey Weinstein's friends not think I'm a good person? So, but that's why I'm here. That's why they invited me. I'm here to help. With apologies to Ronald Reagan, here are 8 of the most terrifying words in the English language. I'm from Hollywood, and I'm here to help. Thank you. Well, a lot of the things that constantly I'm asked, is why is Hollywood the way it is? Why is it so politically monolithic, and why are they all leftists? Especially when they are in one of the most directly transactional capitalist businesses in the world. I mean, basically all of show business is like a Little Rascals episode where Spanky and Alfalfa put on a show for the neighborhood, right? They charge a nickel, and if it's good, they make money, and if it's bad, they all get in a pie fight or something. So it's pure capitalism, and so why doesn't Hollywood understand that? Well, I was born in Hendersonville, North Carolina. Anybody? Yeah. UNC. I went to Carolina, so don't want to talk about that. But my extended family is all still in Hendersonville, and when I first moved to L.A. in the early 90s, my cousin Gary came out to visit me. At that time, he had a weaving business. He was in the rug business and did very well with it, went all over the world, and he came to L.A. to do a trade show, and one night after we'd had a few drinks, my cousin Gary says, "All right, Nick, I've got Los Angeles figured out. I know why everything out here is so screwed up." And I said, "All right, well, lay it on me." He said, "Well, for 100 years, the craziest people in America have moved to Hollywood to try to be movie stars, and then they made it." That's pretty good. I mean, except I think he was talking about me too, but that is part of it. But I think also there's the business, the way it's evolved, there's a lot of intimidation and groupthink going on because of how difficult it is to get a job in the entertainment business. The numbers are so unfavorable that it's practically impossible. And there was a late comedian named Louis C.K., who's not really late, but he's just canceled, right? But he had a great line about this. He said, saying you want to be a professional actor is like saying you want to be a cartoon dog wearing a jetpack. It's about as likely. It's about as possible. So since it's so hard to break in, and since, there's so many reasons that any given actor doesn't get a job, you're too fat, or you're too thin, or you're too young, or you're too old, or you're too smart, which is what happens to me a lot. When you're starting out, you want to give them as few reasons as possible to reject you, right? So the bullies at the top of the business are the ones who enforce this. They speak out publicly constantly to send the signal, if you want to make it, you got to be in the club. I mean, take, for example, Presidential Medal of Freedom winner Robert De Niro. You thought I was going to say Rush, didn't you? Yeah, I guest hosted for Rush one time. Did I mention that? Have I mentioned that? But people forget that Obama gave De Niro the same award that Trump gave Rush, but the difference being that when Trump gave Rush the Medal of Freedom, he made the Democrats sit there and watch it. Just one more reason to love President Trump. But at the Tony Awards, see, Robert De Niro, he thought it was appropriate to just go to the microphone at the Tony Awards and yell, "Duck Trump." Notice I said duck with a D. He didn't say duck. He said something else. Yeah. And Lorena Gonzalez, one of the California Democrats who brought us AB 5, she likes to yell that at people too. But De Niro, he called Trump a gangster, and he's called him Hitler and a racist and a white supremacist, and basically all the things that Democrats have called every Republican president or candidate since Goldwater, even Romney and McCain when they were trying to convince us that they really wanted to be president. And well, just this past September, there was a Trump fundraiser announced in Beverly Hills, and Will and Grace got involved. Well, remember the show Will and Grace? I didn't watch it either. But they go on Twitter. They don't even hide it anymore. They go on Twitter and they go, "Please," Deborah Messing says, "please print a list of all the attendees. The public has a right to know." And Will got involved. "Kindly report on everyone attending this event so the rest of us can be clear about who we don't want to work with." So that's who they are. And even last week, they went after John Krasinski. Do you guys know who John Krasinski is? Yeah, he was in 13 Hours about Benghazi, and he directed the movie A Quiet Place. He's also in that Jack Ryan series on Amazon. But they wrote articles accusing Krasinski of possibly being a closet conservative because he was in a number of shows that portrayed the American military in a positive light. And because conservatives like to watch those shows. Now, Krasinski has already publicly announced that he's for Pocahontas. Can I say Pocahontas? I don't know. I like to call her Liawatha, personally. Or Taxagewea. I like Taxagewea, too. Or Spreading Bull, or Runs with Mouth Open. I mean, there's a lot of... Ugh. But see, because Krasinski, simply because he makes shows that Trump supporters like, he's a suspect, right? So that's the environment. So what that produces is, I mean, I can tell you, I could make a list of these well-known actors, people that you would know, if not their names, you'd know their faces. People you would know, who say to me all the time, Nick, you're crazy. I agree with you, but I would never say that publicly because I know it would hurt my bottom line. And they're right, and they're smarter than I am. And then they have their award shows where they, reward each other for this insufferable behavior. And that sends the message, kid, if you want to be in this club, you want to get some awards, you want to be like me, you got to be like us, you got to be in the club. And if you have a story you want to tell, a movie you want to make that doesn't fit their ideology, they're not going to touch it. They're going to exclude you. Because leftists, their intention is always to clear the field and march down the field unopposed. They don't want to argue. They don't want to have marketplace of ideas. They have to win by keeping us off the field. And they like to throw the word fascism around when they are the fascists. They're the ones that they want to silence everybody that disagrees with them. And the fact of the matter is, they're never going to let us in. They never are. Because if they do let us in, they themselves become suspect, just like Krasinski. Hollywood, the way to understand it, it's a town run by fear and populated by cowards. And basically their business now is not making products for the audience to enjoy, but they are now making products simply to impress each other. Because they know that their next job is not going to come from the audience. It's going to come from the guy above them in the food chain, right? And that's why most programs these days aren't very good and there aren't many people watching them. And the bottom line of everything I'm saying here and what I want to say to you tonight is what Deborah was talking about, the importance of story. We got to get in this game. We have got to get in the game, people. We have got to participate in the culture, and we're paying the price right now for not having done so. We have to put our money where our mouth is, and it's not enough to just boycott Hollywood and say, I'm not going to support that, I'm going to wash my hands of the whole thing. I hear that all the time. But you see, it's not us that's being affected. It's our children that are being affected by the culture. We gave away academia to the leftists long ago, and the left has marched through the institutions virtually unopposed, and that's what brought us to this point where the Democrat Party is about to nominate a full-blown, unashamed communist for president. I mean, how did this happen? It's because we didn't get in the field. We didn't fight back. And if you add to that the fact that all of the mainstream entertainment that your children watch from the time they're old enough to watch Teletubbies or whatever, it always reinforces the same things. Republicans are racist, Christians are hypocrites, progressives are compassionate, policemen are corrupt and racist, real socialism has never been tried, America's evil, imperialistic, and on and on and on. Now, since they won't let us in, we're going to have to find a way to go around them. And we've got to build a new Hollywood. And yeah. Now, a few years ago, I directed a movie that did go around the system called Gosnell. We were talking about it before. It went around the system. They raised the money on, they started on Kickstarter, but they had to move to Indiegogo because Kickstarter censored their campaign. Because Kickstarter wants to be in the club, you know, they want to be there. They want to be friends with Harvey Weinstein. But I think we all know the story of Gosnell, what he did. He was an abortion doctor who killed babies after they were born, which is now legal in some states. But the money was raised in 2014. We shot the movie in 2015, finished it probably around 2016, edited, scored, everything done, and then it took almost 3 years to get the film distributed after we had it made. We had a great sales agent on board, somebody who sold millions of dollars worth of films. He saw the film, he said, this is a good movie, it's got an audience, this should sell very quickly. He got one offer for $50,000. That's all he got. And he got responses like, this is a good movie, I'm sure there's an audience for it, but I have to work with these people on Monday, right? The distribution companies were afraid they'd get kicked out of the club if their name was on Gosnell. And when it was finally released, we finally got a release, they pushed back on our advertising. Facebook blocked about 50 of the ads. NPR wouldn't run any ad that called Gosnell an abortion doctor. Lifetime and Hallmark, two networks whose audience intersects with ours very closely, refused to run any ads. The only network that would accept our ads was, guess what? Fox News, yeah. And we got some airtime on talk radio from people like Glenn Beck and my close personal friend Rush that I mentioned that I guess. But as Deborah said, even though with all that resistance, the first weekend we were #1 in the country, #1 independent film in the country. And the reviews were what you would think. Very polarized, half of them hated us, half of them loved us. But the really significant thing about the reviews was the number of them. Films that are released in that many theaters generally get about 100 reviews, sometimes as many as 200. And Gosnell got 11. 11 reviews, because the left treated the movie like they treated the trial. They ignored it. They didn't want to talk about it. The ideas in it are too dangerous, and they had to pretend it didn't exist. So, what we tried to do was make a film that was truthful, that was based on real transcripts of the court, based on interviews with the principal players in the real-life drama. And I want to play for you tonight the scene that, when I read the script, made me want to direct the film. The information in this scene was just shocking to me, and I thought everybody on whatever side of the issue you're on, you need to know this, because when I read this scene, I was like, I didn't know that that's what it was. So this clip we're going to show is Gosnell's defense attorney cross-examining a good abortion doctor, that was called by the prosecution to show the difference between what Gosnell did and what a legal abortion was. So. Dr. North, how many abortions would you say you performed in your career?
I have performed over 30,000 abortions.
Wow. In the second trimester, what method of abortion do you use?
Mostly D&E, dilation and evacuation.
Yes. Dilation is where you soften and widen the woman's cervix, correct?
That is correct. Once the fetus grows larger, it's very important that we do that to prevent the cervix from tearing as the fetus is removed.
And then you evacuate the fetus. You remove it from the womb.
Yes. But first, we have to make sure that it's not a live birth.
Oh, of course. Of course. How do you do that?
Well, we inject potassium chloride into the heart of the fetus.
With one of these, correct?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd like to introduce Defense Exhibit 1A on the screen. May I publish?
You may publish.
Now, this is a sonogram of a 23-week-old fetus, and so when you inject the fetus, do you put the needle here?
No.
Here?
Yes,
Right there. And that stops the heart.
that's correct.
And then you use forceps. You use these and you reach up in there and you grab a hold of an arm or a leg or whatever and you pull on it until it comes out or comes off. Correct?
That's correct. But with larger fetuses, they remain intact.
Of course, because the head's bigger. Makes it more difficult. What do you do then?
We use a machine to suction out the gray matter.
The gray matter, the brains. So you suction out the brains, and then what happens?
Then the skull collapses and the fetus can be removed.
Right. Now, isn't it true that sometimes in order to get the suction machine into the fetus, you have to use a pair of scissors to make a hole in the back of the neck?
Sometimes this happens, yes.
So before, when you said that you'd never cut the neck of a fetus...
I was referring to a live birth.
Oh, okay, yeah, I get it now. Have you ever had a live birth during an abortion attempt, doctor?
No, I have not, because we listened to the sonogram to ensure that the fetal heart has stopped.
Well, what if you made a mistake?
We don't.
Well, what if you did?
Objection, hypothetically, Your Honor.
Your Honor, she's a medical expert. I'd like to have her opinion.
Overruled. I'm going to allow the question, but stay on point, counselor.
What would you do if the baby was out and it was breathing?
We would issue comfort care.
Comfort care. Can you define that for us?
That's keeping the fetus warm and comfortable. Eventually, it will pass.
Eventually, it would pass. So basically, you'd let it die. Seems like it'd be more humane to just take a pair of scissors.
Objection!
Withdraw the question, Your Honor. I love that defense attorney. He's great. But you know, that scene, there was just so much information in that scene that I didn't know, that I thought everybody should know. But that's the scene that most of the negative reviews singled out as propaganda. Even though it was taken directly from the transcripts, even it's exactly what Gosnell's attorney said, that's propaganda, because the entire subject is something they don't want you to know anything about. In the Hollywood narrative, the only thing you need to know about abortion is that if you oppose it, or if you even want restrictions on it, you're a racist who hates women. That's the Hollywood narrative. So, if we want to tell stories like this, we got to create our own thing. And I think the first thing that we have to do is that we have to stop being afraid of the bullies in Hollywood. Because we got nothing to be ashamed of. We need to speak up and say our opinion and say what we think and let the chips fall where they may. And I realize that's easy for me to say because I'm such a big star. But the second thing we have to do is what Deborah was talking about, and that is to recognize the power of storytelling and how that impacts the culture. And conservative investors are generally not disposed towards storytelling. They're not disposed towards financing feature films or television shows that aren't documentaries. And that's not just because they're risky investments. It's because we don't see the value. We see value in news networks and not sitcoms and not comp shows. But everybody's watching the sitcoms. Everybody's watching the comp shows. Conservatives like to fund the websites, but not movies. A friend of mine put it like this: if the conservatives built the library, it'd be all nonfiction. It'd be all history and science and math. If liberals built the library, it'd be all novels and poems and short stories. And the liberal library would be more fun. I'd go there. Now, Deborah stole my quote, but it's probably the most overused quote in conservative speeches in American history by this point. But as Andrew Breitbart said, politics is downstream of culture. And we have let the Hollywood left define the culture for 50 years. But we've got an opening now, because Hollywood has destroyed itself. It's destroyed its own product. It's even like destroyed the mystique of the movie star. Because when you used to hear movie star, you'd think Marilyn Monroe or Gregory Peck or somebody handsome or beautiful that sort of tells stories that make you feel things that you don't generally feel in your real life. But now, when somebody says movie stars, you think, just some other blowhard that hates me because I don't want to vote for socialism. So they've left us this opening, so how do we do it? Well, this is my theory. You can take it for what it is, but I think that what we need is a Rush Limbaugh in the world of filmmaking and television, right? I hosted his show one time. Did I mention that? But for all of you young people out there, and I see a couple, see a lot of young ladies and really old men, but before, what life was like before Rush, it's hard to understand if you weren't alive back then, because there was nobody. There was no one like him. There was nothing. There was no Fox News. There was no Sean Hannity. There wasn't even talk radio, not on a national level. There was no alternative to the alphabet network's biased news reporting. And Rush, pretty much by himself, destroyed that monopoly. And the effect that he's had has been immeasurable. Rush changed Andrew Breitbart. Orson Bean gave Andrew Breitbart Rush's first book, and that helped convert Andrew. He changed me. He's changed countless other listeners, which is, they know how effective he is. That's why the left has tried to silence him for 30 years. He's totally changed the culture, mostly by just standing up to it, by standing up to them and showing the rest of us that it could be done and that it was fun, that it was fun to make fun of them, you know. And now, you know, we in this room, we are the counterculture. We're the punk rockers. We're the Sex Pistols. Let's turn it up. And I would argue that without Rush, there would never have been a President Trump. That's how much he changed the culture. And speaking of President Trump, because at the end of the day, everything is about President Trump, the reason that the left is so ineffective against him, I heard people talking out there about how all the winning, and it just never stops, and he just wins all the time. The reason they can't stop him, and it's also why they hate him so much, is that President Trump doesn't come from politics. He comes from the culture. He was on television for years, even before he had his own show. People got used to him. People got a sense of him. The American people got comfortable with him, and whether you liked him or whether you didn't like him, you got a sense that he was a real person, that he wasn't a phony like most of the politicians that we were used to, like Mitt Romney. Sorry. But like Rush, Trump does not put on airs. You know, he doesn't focus group his thoughts. He just talks to us. He just talks to us, whether he's on Twitter, whether it's on the way to the helicopter, whether it's not you, no, not you, fake news, no, don't be rude, don't be rude. Yes, go ahead, shut up, not you. It's the best. It just makes everything so much fun. And the Daytona 500, I mean, that was so great. I mean, it really ruined the day for those 5 or 6 Democrats that watch NASCAR, but everybody else. But I think I have the solution here, and I'm going to present it to you tonight. I have a candidate that I think you should consider backing as the Rush Limbaugh of entertainment. This is a man who's worked in Hollywood and the belly of the beast for at least 30 years. He's already directed one movie that affected the culture positively. Don't get ahead of me here. He's going to direct 2 movies in the next 18 months, one set in the world of gospel quartet music, which is a very sexy subject. I don't know why Hollywood doesn't want to do that. And a movie about the Battle of Kings Mountain in the Revolutionary War, which is the first battle that America actually won. And he's working with a group called American Pictures to make a slate of movies that will be positive about America and will not mock or slander people of faith. He is also working with a group that is creating a new streaming service and a content platform called Creado, which will compete with Netflix and YouTube and do so without censoring conservative voices or narratives. And he is also, without a doubt, the biggest Hollywood star to ever guest host the Rush Limbaugh show, and I'm talking about this man right here. Thank you for having me. And if you brought your checkbooks, I'll be at the bar. I'm from Hollywood. I'm here to help. Thank you.